Hi everyone, so I'm going to be going over incrementing just because there's some students who still need some help in this area. So I'm going to show you a few different ways you can increment here and what exactly it's going to be used for later. So right over here, let's start with the first problem. It says initialize a variable called num to the value of 4. So let's do that first. We'll do var num is equal to 4, semicolon, and what it says here, it says increment num by 1. So what we want to do, it's essentially saying we can assign it to a new value by adding 1 to it. So I'll show you the longhand way of doing it first. Num is equal to num plus 1. So right here you can see it says that's just taking this num value we initialized at the top here, and it's 4. So what it'll do is it'll put the number 4 here, and it'll add 1 to it. So 4 plus 1, that'll be 5. So now num is going to be updated to the number 5. And if we save it, and we do console.log num, save it, and let's run this in the terminal. cd desktop, then node test.js. And you see here, we get the value of 5. Now I'm going to show you another way we can increment by 1. So we'll take that same number. Right now it's the value of 5, so we're just going to add 1 more to it. So I'll show you a slightly shorthand way of doing these things. So it's still going to do this exact same process, but it's going to be slightly shorthand. So right here, what we could do is we could do num plus equals 1. And it's essentially just saying the exact same thing that we said here on line 7, but it's just slightly shorter. And let's save it. And after this, let's do console.log num, save, and let's run this. And you can see here we get the value of 5 from the first one, and then the value of 6 from the second one. It's just different ways of writing this increment. Now I'll show you the really shorthand way of doing things and why it's important to do it afterwards. So let's do num plus plus, semicolon, and then we'll do console.log num. And this one right here is essentially just really a condensed version of these two up here. But the only difference is that if you're going to, right here, increase or increment, this shorthand way only increments by 1. So let me just first show you in the console log what it'll look like. So let's run it. And you can see here we get 5, 6, 7, because each one here is just incrementing by 1. So right here, the first one up here increments by 1. Then the next one increments by 1. And this one increments by 1. But the only issue is with this, you can only increment by 1 and not more than that. But here, up here, for this one and the one below, you can change this value. Instead of 1, we could say like 2 or 3, right? We could change these numbers. So if we change that to 3 and 3, and we run it, you can see here we get 7, because 4 plus 3 now is 7. And then it takes the 7 and it adds another 3 here, and that is 10. And the last one only increments by 1, because that's the only thing that this num plus plus can do, is just increment by 1. So let's make those back to 1 right now. But that's essentially how you do the longhand way, the semi-short way, and then this one is actually the shortest hand way of incrementing, but it just has limitations. Now let's look at why some of these might be really important, especially the last one, the num plus plus. So let's say we have a sentence like var sentence is equal to an empty string. And now let's set up a for loop. So we could say for var I is equal to 0. So we're starting at the value of 0. and now I will say make I go up to less than, let's say 4. So once it gets to like 3, then it'll stop. But what we want to do is increase or increment this each time by 1. And now what we'll do is we'll put a sentence is equal to, or we could do plus equal to, the number is, and then plus, we could put the value of I to display it. And then if we do another plus and add this break in between, what this is essentially doing is just going to put this on a brand new line once it's read. You'll see in a second here. And what we can do now is we can do console.log sentence semicolon, and once you've set up this for loop here, what we're essentially doing is we're starting at number 0, and then we have to increase by 1 each time we go through this for loop, because it goes through it over and over and over again until it reaches this stopping point, which is less than 4. So it'll stop at 3, and then it'll console log out the sentence. So we'll save it, and I'm going to run this. So it shows here, okay, so the reason it's not doing the break is because this is more for the web version, so let's just do this then. I'm just going to do, sure, we'll just do this. Period, so plus, period, and then space. Okay, so the reason why the break didn't work is because we need the HTML document, but that's okay, I'm not going to do it that way. So you can see here, it repeats it over and over and over and over again until it stops at the number 3, but still giving you that entire sentence that we have created. And this plus equals is essentially saying just add to the sentence. So it's essentially saying just use the plus equals, because it's just going to add more information on top of what has already been done. So it'll start with number is 0 because it starts at 0, and then it's going to go through the for loop one more time, and it's going to increment by 1. So now I is 1. So it'll be like the number is 1, and it's adding it to the sentence. So that's why you see this. Then it'll get to the bottom here, and it'll say, oh, we have to go back up to the top here again, and it's still below 4. So it's now, when it adds one more, it'll be 2. And then it'll go through the number is 2, and it'll add it to the sentence, which is why you get this. And then it'll read down to the bottom here, it'll say, oh, there's a closing bracket, let's go back up and see here. Is it less than 4 still? Yes. We're incrementing by 1. It's a 3, it's still less than 4. Perfect. So what's going to do is going to go here, it's going to now say the number is 3. So that's why we get this. And it's going to add it to the sentence, like you see this entire sentence here. And then it'll go back down here, and then it'll say, oh, let's try to go back up here again. But because we have a number 3, and it wants to increment it by 1 more again, so the number will be 4. But since 4 is the same as 4, but we're saying that we want something less than 4. So it's not even going to go through this iteration again. It's just going to stop. It's going to go out of the for loop, and it'll just do the console log here. So that's why these incrementing shorthands is so important, because once you get into for loops, you're going to have to know how to use it.